Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier, and thank you as always for stopping by. I had a very eventful day yesterday, and I'm deeply grateful to His Excellency Alain Berset, the President of the Swiss Confederation. Very mercurial, engaging, all-round good fellow, I must say. And then interviewed him. We'll be publishing that in a little while, sometime today. And then whizzed across to reception at the residence, and that was fun as well. About 80 people. I met Dr. Pizzo, and I said to Dr. Pizzo, wow, I really enjoyed your performance, which I did, at TEDx up in Kakuma. And Sid Chatterjee, I met for the first time in person Nurdin Haji. I said, I've been thinking about you, and here you are, voila. Attorney General, a load of folks, the High Commissioner, the British High Commissioner, and I teased him this morning on email saying, you're the first British High Commissioner I've heard get a shout out from a head of state, a not in country head of state, as it were. So thank you for that. When I started my interview, I said to His Excellency, I've been going through your Twitter feed, and I found a tweet from Hassan Rouhani. And indeed, if you go and have a look, you'll find it a very constructive, positive tweet. And we kicked off with that, about Switzerland's place in the world. And of course, they've represented, I think, US interests in Iran for a number of years. The fight against corruption is an important issue for Switzerland and for Kenya. This is on the signing of a modus operandi for returning stolen money. The thing is, all this money is frozen anyway. And I saw Mohamed Wellier, rather tongue-in-cheek, is saying better off just keeping it there. So yes, all round, very interesting engagement. We'll publish that interview in a little while. Macro thoughts, sterling fell more than a cent to about 132.33 before embarking on a bounce. We're now at 132.70. And in fact, I would prefer to buy it right now because I think Theresa May has come out a lot stronger and Boris Johnson has blown it in some respects. The resignation of Johnson will add to market fears of a leadership challenge in the process, risking further UK political paralysis, said Jeremy Stretch. I'm not sure if that's true. Strategists said last week that the pound could fall as low as 125 on a leadership challenge. I don't think that's likely, rallying as high as 134 on a Brexit strategy deal, which also gains the backing of the EU. But this is what, Hervé tweeted this to me, reflecting on the upcoming US sanctions against Iran. Rouhani said they haven't thought it through, and Hervé was saying, I think the same applies to the UK's Brexiteers. Hence the brinkmanship we're currently witnessing. And I think the important point there is they haven't thought it through, and I don't think they've got a strategy, and I think counterintuitively she seems to have one. Tariff wars was the subject of my weekend musings. I asked who blinks first. We've also done a little YouTube video of it if you prefer to hear it as opposed to read it. And then I came across this in the BBC, US-China trade war, a soybean farmer's view. And the issue is that the Chinese have been quite surgical in their response so far, targeting the farm economy in particular. Home Thoughts, Osteria Francescana is named the world's best restaurant. This is a dish from that same world's best restaurant, looks pretty tasty. Very interesting article in the FT, sand dunes on Namibia's skeleton coast. There is something final about the town of Moe Bay, tracing a line up the skeleton coast, the band of desert on Namibia's northwestern seaboard. It marks a full stop. This is where the road runs out. Turn to the Atlantic and you're met by a thundering swell. Turn inland and you reach a dreamlike sea of sand dunes. For centuries, ships have been wrecked on this shore, overcome by strong swirling currents, The sailors were succeeded by diamond prospectors who arrived overland in the 19th century in search of new beginnings, only to lose fortunes. Today, the 1,000-strong population of the town's barking seal colony vastly outnumbers the human one. This is a place where the garden ornaments are the bleached bones of whales, the skulls of elephants, giraffes and birds. Mobay's dusty single-room museum is a collection of memento mori, turtle shells, lion fetuses, and formaldehyde. A few doors down, a mast and 2 oars from the skeletal frame of an abandoned house. This is not the end of the world. 30 miles north, in one of the most highly protected parts of this sparsely populated country, is the Shipwreck Lodge. Each of its 10 implausibly luxurious cabins looks like a child's drawing of a tugboat, with wooden ribs and portholes and little black chimney stacks emerging from their roofs, filled with beachy bric-a-brac, rope and timber shelving, mismatched pegs for hanging coats. They seem to sail serenely across the dunes. In the desert, animals look and behave differently. They follow crazy paths. Start by tracking a rhino east, says Urabi, and you will inevitably find it far to the west. The riverbed may be crowded with animal tracks, but many of the creatures we encounter travel alone. A sleeping jackal, a startled springbok, a solo ostrich, a lone lioness, lazily making her way along the river bank. The first we come across is a solitary giraffe negotiating a meal from a thorny anna tree, cold morning air. Binga grew up in a village in the Kalahari where his mother instilled in him a fascination for the natural world. She knew everything about the chameleon and the hornbill, he says. I remember when I read about them in my textbooks later, everything was exactly as she had told me. Skeleton Coast is both hostile and fragile. Binga is its respectful custodian. Near the sea, the sand is covered with a dirty crust of black and red gypsum. A car crunching over the surface will leave tracks that will remain visible for 100 years. Further down the coast, the ghostly trail of a 19th century German Volkswagen can still be seen, heading into the great nowhere. The traces left by humans on this windswept shoreline are by turns tragic and futile. We take 11s in the lee of the shipwrecked Karimona, a Japanese ship first discovered here in 1971. Wow, I really would like to go there. I've been wanting to go there, actually, going by the number of photographs I seem to be posting of Namibia. I read Paul Theroux, who took a trip through Angola and Namibia. That was pretty exciting. I must go there. And then, of course, who's the fellow who Prince Charles used to like, explorer, South African, I can't remember his name, it's escaped me. And who then was supposedly, his reputation got damaged much later on. I'll remember. On the Great Indian Mango Trail is an article in Wall Street Journal. Here, the frostless winters and tumultuous summers provide the perfect weather cycle for complex and memorable fruit. Warm to the touch even days after being picked and redolent of one or all of honey, lemon, peach, rose, cinnamon, pepper, or sugarcane. This is the mangoscape of India. The most comprehensive list prepared in 1998 by the mango scientist S.N. Pandey lists 1,663 kinds of mangoes. More than 1,000 are found solely in India. In a hotel room in Panjim, the Goan capital, I set down a stash of Mancurados, Hilarios, Fernandines, Musarats, Xaviers that had bought at dawn at the municipal fruit market, their Baroque names pointing to their origins in Catholic botany. I ate them with a steady escalating elation and disbelief that I had lived less than 400 miles north of Mumbai for half of my life and never encountered one of these superstars. I became a mango bum. He who has eaten a mango has but eaten a mango, I replied, wise from so much ambrosial eating. But he who has eaten many mangoes has truly seen the world. Political reflections. Boris Johnson said the Prime Minister's plans for negotiating with Europe equated to going into battle with white flags fluttering. Theresa May wrote, "I am sorry and a little surprised to receive your resignation after the productive discussions we had at Chequers on Friday." He said, "I'm proud to have served as Foreign Secretary. It is with sadness that I step down. Here is my letter explaining why." Andrew Neil, Boris' resignation letter says Brexit dream is dying and we're heading for the status of a colony. Torsten Bell tweeted, "Classic line from a impressively perky Brexit-focused civil servant. We have at least now reached the kinetic phase of the car crash. Rats leave the sinking ship. Brussels predicts flight of the Brexiteers after David Davis quits." So I think, in my opinion, that she has now got the upper hand, that it's very difficult for them to take it to a vote because they know they'll get drubbed. So we're in a delicate position, and that's why I think the pound's rallying, and in fact I would buy the pound at 132.64. We knew he was going to leave at some point. Trump suggests China might be interfering in U.S. North Korea talks, seeking to derail U.S. efforts aimed at denuclearizing North Korea, but said he was confident of that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un would uphold a pact the two agreed on last month. In his first remarks about challenging diplomatic talks held at the weekend that sowed fresh doubts over North Korea's willingness to give up its nuclear arsenal, Trump said China may be exerting negative pressure in reaction to punitive US tariffs on Chinese goods. Brilliant. Mike Pompeo reported progress from the first high-level talks since Trump and Kim met in Singapore, although he said a hard road lies ahead. North Korea accused him of gangster-like diplomacy after he left Pyongyang. Now is the time for all of us, the State Department and others, to deliver to implement the agreement between President Trump and Chairman Kim, Pompeo told NATO troops at the end of a visit to Afghanistan. To think that this would happen in the course of a handful of hours would have been ludicrous, he said. My conclusion is the world is a gangster, which is what Pompeo said. But to the point that Trump's making, I said over the weekend, this is a multi-dimensional chessboard, however. China has yanked Pyongyang's leash. Trump tweeted, "I have confidence that Kim Jong-un will honor the contract we signed and even more importantly, our handshake. We agreed to the denuclearization of North Korea," he said. China, on the other hand, may be exerting negative pressure on a deal because of our posture on Chinese trade. Hope not. And then, this caught my attention, Brian Klass. Just imagine if Obama had said he trusted Iran's regime because of a handshake. Trump tore up the Iran deal despite its countless verification and inspection measures, then signed a toothless pledge with Kim as North Korea ramps up its nuclear program. He got played, plain and simple. Inside China's dystopian dreams, AI, shame, and lots of cameras. In the Chinese city of Zhengzhou, a police officer wearing facial recognition glasses spotted a heroin smuggler at a train station. In Oahu, a fugitive murder suspect was identified by a camera as he bought food from a street vendor. With millions of cameras and billions of lines of code, China is building a high-tech authoritarian future. Beijing is embracing technologies like facial recognition and artificial intelligence to identify and track 1.4 billion people. It wants to assemble a vast and unprecedented national surveillance system with crucial help from its thriving technology industry. China is reversing the commonly held vision of technology as a great democratizer, bringing people from freedom, more freedom, and connecting them to the world. In China, it has brought control. In some cities, cameras scan train stations for China's most wanted. Billboard-sized displays show the faces of jaywalkers and list the names of people who can't pay their debts. This is potentially a totally new way for the government to manage the economy and society. The goal is algorithmic governance. That is the point. Xinjiang, of course, is the laboratory. China's unlikely weapon, tourists. Tourism is an unlikely tool of statecraft, but the massive growth in the number of outbound Chinese travellers means that combined economic weight can have sharp consequences that Beijing will continue to use. Let's move on to the currency markets. Euro dollar 117.46, dollar index 94.04, Japanese yen popped above 111, 111.07 last, Swiss franc 0.9913, the pound 132.60, a little bit of a short covering rally here, the Australian dollar 0.7463, Indian rupee just below a record low 68.67, South Korean won 11.1075, the Rial 387.29, Egyptian pound 17.9180, and the Rand continues to improve 13.4137. Dollar index, this is the 3-month chart. Look, I still think there is more rotation lower to come before we resume the bull move. Euro dollar could jump, in my view, as high as 120.60. If you look at the charts from previously, we're currently at 117.46. This is the Chinese currency versus the US dollar, and obviously pretty central to things these days. That's from T Commodity, who also says that WTI printed a weekly spinning top. I don't know what that means, but it sounded good. WTI crude oil last trading at $74.26. I don't see Rouhani managing to shatter the Straits of Hormuz, but it speaks to how nervous this market is currently. Gold is at $12.57. We hit 12.37, bounced pretty viciously from there. Emerging markets, Turkish lira slumps as Erdogan named son-in-law as economy chief. The lira fell 3.8%, extending one of the biggest slides across emerging markets this year. That's a huge drop. Here's a Turkish lira chart from Holger. According to JP Morgan, if a US or global recession is looming, it's time to own the Swiss franc, the Singapore dollar, the US dollar, and the Japanese yen, and ditch emerging market currencies, which is what people have been doing all year. Well, not all year, from about the end of February. Sub-Saharan Africa, Ethiopia's dollar bonds rose to a 10-week high of 100.25 after Ethiopia and Eritrea leaders met on Sunday and agreed on re-establishing ties. That's from Maggie Fick. This is a photograph from Gobena Street. Good morning, Ethiopia and Eritrea. Once bitter foes, Ethiopia and Eritrea promise a bridge of love. This goes back to my comment that these 90, which are now 100 or so days, represent the most consequential arrival of an African politician on the African stage since Mandela walked out of prison, blinking in the sunlight, and constructed his rainbow nation. This is a 100-day scorecard compiled by Gobena Street. And then, if you've got time, I did a little video about Ethiopia Rising and why I see him as a Virillian character. We will demolish the wall and with love build a bridge between the two countries. Stirring words from Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. McKinsey said sorry to South Africans in a speech delivered at the Gordon Institute of Business Science on Monday morning. I wrote about this in September last year, a reputational risk and a cautionary tale from South Africa. South African all shares down 2.16% this year. As you can see from this dollar-rand chart, the rand's been bouncing near term. Nigerian all shares down 1.55% year-to-date. The Ghana Stock Exchange is up 10.4% year-to-date. Zimbabwe's opposition chief eyes an Obama effect in a historic poll. Believes he will ride a wave of youthful optimism to election victory, emulating Obama, Macron, and Justin Trudeau. People are connecting with young leadership, he declared. The world is moving. Young people are taking charge. Look at France, look at Canada, look at New Zealand, look at the United States. Obama became US president aged 47, Trudeau aged 43, Macron aged 39. Most of the young people out there are connecting with our message, are connecting with my age, they're connecting with the vision I'm articulating. He will face off against 75-year-old Mnangagwa, whose ZANU-PF party has ruled Zimbabwe since independence 38 years ago. I'm happy that they're accusing me of being young. It's an offense that I take, said Chamisa, from behind an Apple laptop in his office overlooking Harari's Africa Unity Square. Change is in the air. It's almost everywhere, he said. There is no way Mnangagwa is going to beat us. He's going to be a distant second. We're ahead by miles. Look, if he's going to win by a landslide. And I wouldn't count him out at all, because I think after 38 years, a lot of people that are very young, they can go in and think, you know what, let's try something different. And that's why I called a piece I wrote in November, The Genie's Out of the Bottle. Multi-billion-dollar Kenya city developers refuse to pay foreign investors. This is an article in the FT. The former Kenyan central bank governor and a prominent East African businessman are embroiled in scandal after they defied a British court to pay $17 million in damages to foreign investors over the development of a multi-billion-dollar city, that's Tatu City. The case highlights the legal and commercial challenges many foreign investors encounter in East Africa's dominant economy. The London Court of International Arbitration ruled this February that Vimal Shah, chairman of consumer goods manufacturer Bidco Africa, Nahashon Nyaga, former Central Bank of Kenya governor, and their associates should pay $17 million for damages, interest and costs to SCF Holdings, after ruling they had defrauded the developer. SCF Holdings is a subsidiary of Endeavour, has projects across Africa, a majority shareholder and developer of Tatu City, a residential and industrial project 12 kilometers northeast of the capital. Mr. Shah and Mr. Nyaga did not challenge the settlement awarded by the London court within the permitted 28 days, but failed to pay. SCF Holdings has now begun legal proceedings in Mauritius to enforce the ruling. Manhattan Coffee Investment Holding, Mr. Shah and Mr. Nyaga's holding company, is registered in the Indian Ocean tax haven. In response, MCIH, which is also a shareholder in the Tatu City development, has applied to the Mauritius courts to set aside the London ruling. Stephen Jennings, Endeavour's chief executive, said the legal battle with the group's Kenyan partners had delayed the Tatu City project by 3 years and illustrated the significant obstacles to doing business in Kenya. You've got to have the temperament and nerves to fight, because there are extortionists who take advantage of some institutions to drag out court cases, he said. The case is centered around MCIH's failure to pay a $20 million deposit to the sellers of some of the land on which Tatu City is being built, despite repeatedly claiming it had. The London court ruled that the false misrepresentation affected SCF Holdings, its investment strategy. In his 127-page written judgment, the arbitrator described part of Mr. Shah's testimony during the hearing as insufficiently consistent with the documentary evidence. Shah said MCIH was refusing to comply with the award on the grounds that it was procured by Jennings's dishonest evidence and because of errors in the way the arbitrator handled the case. He did not explain why he had not challenged the arbitration ruling in London, saying he could not discuss our strategy in public. Mr. Nyaga did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Jennings rejected Shah's allegations, stressing that the Kenyan businessman participated in 2 years of arbitration proceedings, agreed to abide by the result, and did not challenge it. Jennings admitted that he did not do due diligence on his local partners before investing. They thought foreigners come here, they panic when things get tough and they pay up. They thought we'd be like anyone else, panic and pay up, he said of the Kenyan partners. We fought them instead, and they didn't expect that. In spite of persistent challenges, Jennings added that the Kenya's business environment had improved dramatically in recent years, helped by the digitization of many services, and that the market share of the clean people is going up gradually. Have a look at this, where I interviewed him. You've got to have the temperament and nerves to fight, because there are extortionists who take advantage of some institutions to drag out court cases. If you're interested in knowing who Stephen is, there's also a link to the video I took. Kenya Bankers Association's quest to suspend the Robin Hood tax on transactions worth 500,000 shillings and above is premature, as Parliament has not passed the relevant bill into law, the Attorney General said. I met him yesterday. Kenya is a leading apparel exporter under AGOA, both in value and quantity. Total exports from Kenya was $572 million in 2017. Solai Dam owners await bail ruling. I met these gentlemen a couple of times, actually. Nairobi all shares up 1.59% year to date, down 11.523% since hitting a record high in April 5. NSE 20 down 10.98%. Transport paralysed on Nairobi-Mombasa Highway at Imali as residents protest over water shortage in the area. 7 things to see in Saharan West National Park. Some lovely photographs from thesanetravel.com. Do have a look. And have a look at my video we did, Saharan West National Park Landscape with Finch Hands. The CEO of Armed Cement denies report of concealed debts. On Monday, denied a report in the Business Daily. It said it had concealed debts. The newspaper quoted a report by Arms auditor Deloitte saying debts have been accumulated by the company's subsidiaries. This is absolute rubbish, Pradeep Panrana, the CEO, said. Deloitte declined to comment, citing client confidentiality. ARM has seen its market share plunge after a clinker plant it built in Tanzania in 2014 failed to generate income. Deloitte is accusing ARM of a 21 billion shilling debt cover-up. Then we learned this morning that ARM did not pay interest that was due on June the 6th, and everyone is in the dark. It's currently capitalized at 3.455 billion shillings, which is $32 million. Once again, thank you for stopping by.